Stories are never just stories. They reveal emotional patterns we also experience in real life. And today we are going to talk about this very specific way media teaches us that boys' pain is non-existent. It is not obvious. It's wrapped into jokes that we don't really notice. In this episode of Sunday Stories, I'm going to talk about how the specialists were treated, mocked for their sensitivity, made fun of for their lack of masculinity, or I would rather call it toxic masculinity, and dismissed for very harmful things that happened to them. We're going to talk about what that actually says about how we treat men's emotional lives then and now, because this is a conversation that is necessary to have. Do stick around in the video because I am going to get really incensed at some point when we are going to talk about a very specific moment that rubbed me the wrong way and, dare I say, is a crime. You can also look forward to an oracle card pull at the end of this video. You're gonna have a message to sit with before you leave. Now, if you guys are wondering why I'm so passionate about this and why I'm even talking about this, I think you can see, was born in the 2000s. I think you can more or less clock my age here. So I grew up watching Winx Club. I love this TV show. It's my entire childhood. It's very nostalgic to me. While I do love it, there are many things that bother me about it. Things that I already didn't like as a child and I like even less as an adult, and of course even more things that I disagree with now, especially since I'm also a hypnotherapist and lithotherapist, and mental health, well-being, all of that is like my bread and butter. That is what I live for. So when I look back at certain things in Winx Club, it makes me so uncomfortable because I know how harmful it is. I have already made a couple of videos about season 2 of Winx Club, and I've talked about the girl side of things. I thought that I had talked about the boys too, the specialists, but I realized after seeing a comment that I didn't. I forgot about it. And then I was thinking about how I could talk about the subject in a way that is truer to what I do on this channel, because you of course have a lot of channels about cartoons, TV show, etc. analysis. I'm not going to do something that you could see from another creator that will do it much better than me, because honestly, as you will have noticed, I don't do much editing at all. So what is it that I can bring in terms of perspective that you're not going to see necessarily said in the same way from someone else? And when it comes to the specialists, well, you will know that I have very strong opinions about it. I already made a video about what I thought about how the specialists are portrayed in season 1. There is something else that I have to say that I didn't say in that video, and I think applies more specifically to events of season 2. And this is where we talk about what a man is, like what boys want to be, what they think being a man is, what we think as a society, and I'm including women and people of any gender in that, by the way, what we think men are. Because there are some things in season 2 that I was like, obvious like hints of toxic masculinity that we already saw in season 1, mainly with Riven and Sky. More importantly, I want to talk about men's mental health and men's emotional regulation, because I think it is something that isn't talked about enough. I have noticed this pattern in my own personal life where men are treated as though they don't feel, or they don't feel to the same extent. I will say that from what I have noticed, it's more so that they struggle to articulate how they feel, and they struggle with how to process how they feel, more so than them not feeling. And so I want to talk about it because in Winx Club season 2 specifically, the boys, because they're still boys at this point, they're not adults yet, that are actually sensitive, honest, are in tune with their emotions, are being villainized for it, and are more or less implied to be not masculine, or weird or strange, as though emotional regulation wasn't a skill that everyone should have and develop regardless of gender. And of course, since I'm a hypnotherapist, all of this is like very near and dear to my heart, because when you look at everyone at some point and you see their behavior and the fact that their behavior does not make sense, when you start really looking at it with a magnifying glass, a lot of issues that people have come from the fact that they can't regulate their emotions properly, or that they have been burying their emotions. This is something that I mentioned in a past video, I can't remember which, but it has often been the case growing up that girls were allowed to cry, to be emotional, but would be, you know, mocked for it, to be like, oh, you're so weak, you're crying all the time. I mean, that was my experience growing up. And they could never, like, they could feel all of the emotions, but it kind of felt like anger was something that we were forbidden from touching or ever feeling. So that was more so what I noticed a girl's experience was like growing up. And on the other hand, for boys, it was like anger was the only feeling they could feel, like they were being okayed by society to feel, and so they became basically emotionally stunted because they don't have the words to describe what they're feeling, because they just don't know. That is what I have noticed. So now we're gonna actually go through each of the specialists, and I'm gonna talk about what I think about them and what I think, especially when it comes to what the show implied about how masculine they were, or like how good they were as like a man. I mean, they were not men, they were only boys at this point, but you get what I mean. First up is Helia, and I'm going to talk about him first because he is the most recent specialist. He was not in the series before. He is obviously very sensitive, very artsy, very peaceful. Just when he is being introduced, how Brandon and Sky, or Brandon or Sky, can't remember exactly which one, were making snide comments about the fact that he's a pacifist, like he quit being a specialist and he was like the best student of Paladin, and he's like Paladin's nephew and whatever, and he was like very passive aggressive, like the comments, and I think even Stella was like, aren't you jealous or something, and then it was like, oh yeah. Helia is in Winx Club being looked down upon by some of the other characters because he is considered to be too feminine, because the qualities, like his best qualities, his main qualities are traits that usually society would put a sticker on and say, this is a women's, like this belongs to women. It's like a exclusive gender thing of like, oh yeah, of course you're sensitive, you're peaceful or whatever. And to be more on this spiritual side of things, it's like I would say that Helia incarnates really well the divine feminine, for those of you who know what I mean by that. And it's like, it's not a bad thing. Some traits that are considered feminine, why can't men have them too? And why can't women have more masculine traits? So I did have this feeling, and tell me if you noticed this too, that it kind of felt like Helia was being looked down upon for being like this. And don't even get me started on what happens in season 3, even though he was described as being a pacifist. Like, completely brushed over the guy's entire value system, like it's nothing. But I mean, Winx Club does do that a lot. The best thing about it is that Helia is so self-assured that it doesn't really get to him. And I know that a lot of boys who were maybe more in tuned into their feminine side were mocked for it and bullied for it. And I had friends that were like this. Friends that had a lot of girl friends that they weren't dating, by the way. And it just like, it caused this alienation with the other boys, because it was kind of like, how dare you be sensitive? And how dare you be friend with a girl? It's like, what the heck is wrong with that? So now that I've talked about Helia, I'm gonna talk about Timmy. Because to me, Timmy is next in line with Helia when it comes to mocking. I would say actually it's even more prevalent. There were many times in the season where Timmy was being compared to like this paragon of masculinity, of being a warrior, of being brave or whatever. And it was like it came out of left field that Tekna would expect those things of him. Things that, you know, are very stereotypically masculine. And I would say, I would go as far as like toxic masculine traits. And there was this moment too when Bloom's dark side took over, where she mocked Timmy. The things that she said, and like there were all the other characters, there was Tekna avoiding him until he proved himself. It's like, why did he need to prove himself? There was nothing wrong with Timmy in the first place, you know. And I really feel for Timmy because he's such a great character. He's such a solid character. He is like as close to perfect as you could be as a person who is emotionally regulated, knows what he wants, is brave, is loyal, is like all of those traits. But it's like as though because he is like the nerdy type, like the scrawny specialist that they made clumsy for whatever reason, then it's like, oh haha, you know, like it was like making fun of him for hanging out with the popular boys. For those of you who had those cliques growing up, you get what I mean? It's like, wow, you're part of them, but like you're not part of them, you know? It kind of felt like this. And this is why I'm like, I don't see why, because he's the most like well-rounded character. He is emotionally regulated, like he is good on all points. So why is he the one we're making fun of? It's like, he's the best character there is. I don't understand why we need to prove ourselves so that we can be acknowledged and considered worthy. And I will say, this is the sort of thing that really messes with someone's psyche. I am speaking from personal experience, but also as like professional experience of having worked with a couple of people who, when you look at how they develop certain behaviors and you see the root cause of it, and it has to do with like, oh, I need to prove myself so that I can, you know, it's like a very transactional, I need to earn approval, I need to earn this, earn that. And I'm like, why? Like, you know, just by being alive and existing, you're worthy of being alive. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. And especially in that manner, I found this really, really effy. I'm gonna get to Riven. And Riven is a pleasant surprise because based on what he was like in season 1, the Riven in season 2 is like awesome. Now, don't make me wrong. Riven is not an emotionally regulated character. He is no Helia, he's no Timmy, alright? But when you compare to what he was like before, he is completely changed. And again, this whole moment where he was imprisoned and psychologically tortured by Darcy clearly had some effect. Now, it's quite an extreme way, but like the character growth behind it was amazing. Out of this world, really. What I'm bothered by is that throughout season 2, he was still being like, it was as though they were advertising that he was the bad guy still, even though he was not the bad guy anymore. And like they would have moments with Musa where she would just go after the guy and bite his head off for no reason, and somehow he's in the wrong, he needs to apologize for things, and I'm like, what? Or he needs to be the bigger person to then go to her. Now, I'm not saying don't ever be the bigger person, but I'm like, why are you making it a thing? Why does Riven have to always over-explain himself when Musa is as equally shitty as expressing herself? And yes, I do have strong feelings about how Musa is like in season 2, but also in other seasons, because that's not just in season 2. Get the guy a break. Like, he made such tremendous progress, and that is how he's being treated. That is how we want to feel about him. Because again, when you look at from, you know, some distance and perspective, you can obviously see that Riven is doing great for where he started. Again, he was a misogynistic asshole, pardon me for my vocabulary, and he is no longer that. he is being really helpful. He's trying to be understanding. He is trying to be patient. He's actively trying. And it's like, even though he's actively trying, the way the show framed him was still within the lens of here's the bad boy, here's the bad guy. And I'm like, what? Where did you fish that from? This is also something that we can apply in real life too. I have seen it when people are actively trying to change and are clumsy at doing it, and like people at the slightest mistake are there to just chew them out. And I'm like, what? They're trying, like they are not gonna be this paragon of goodness like in a day. That is not possible. That is not how change works, especially if you're coming from a place as Riven came from, which is a very, very wounded place, probably traumatic. Again, don't know enough about him to say, but based on how he was like in season 1, like obviously, you know, it's clear there was something going on there. And a few of my viewers did point out that his mom did abandon him, which I kind of had assumed and guessed because he had very clear issues with women. But it's like, when someone is actively trying, don't snipe the first attempt, clumsy attempt that they do, because like then they don't want to make any more effort. Now, I'm not saying that you need to excuse everyone's mistakes. That's not what I'm saying. But still, you know, there's like a little bit of understanding and compassion without necessarily, you know, like swallowing your own truth about it. I think some people need to understand that, yeah, change takes time. The reason why I am going to definitely talk about what I do as a job is because it relates to this. Sometimes, and for those of you who watched my shadow work workshop, you know where this is going to go. Even though you actively realize there's something wrong with how you act and how you think, you can't manage to change because you don't know, you don't understand the subconscious wiring that is causing that. All right, which is why I am not a great proponent of talk therapy. I think it has its place, but I'm just saying, if you want something that is efficient, I would say go to the root cause and things that are much more deep and intensive in how they work. Just because, to me, talk therapy is what is going to make you realize there's something wrong. Like, oh, I react this way and that's not helping me, is it? But now, to actually understand why you're acting the way you are and how to change that, that is not happening in talk therapy. Again, talking from experience, I did go to regular talk therapy before I went into hypnotherapy and trained in it. Again, as I said in my workshop, 95% of what controls your actions, thoughts, beliefs, behavior, everything, the whole shebang, is unconscious. So you need to make the unconscious conscious, so that you are able to change. There's a great quote from Carl Jung about this, but I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm not gonna try to quote it. If there are things that you want to change and you don't know why you're the way that you are and you don't know how to change them either, I highly recommend doing hypnotherapy. Also lithotherapy, which is energy healing using minerals and crystal, because it's not just your mind, like it's in your energy and it's like in your energetic field. So things aren't as easy or as obvious. Now, you might have some hallelujah moments, and great to you if you do. It's not going to be like that for everyone. It's not going to be like that for most people, actually. And so, yeah, I highly recommend doing more intensive types of shadow work. So if you want to work with me, you're going to have the link in the description of the video. And I do free discovery calls. So even if you want to talk about something and you notice about yourself, like honestly, book a spot and then we can talk about it. Now I'm getting to the character I like the least in the Specialist, and those of you who have actually seen previous videos, you know exactly who I mean. And honestly, it's like not that hard to guess, even if you haven't watched past videos, because I have 2 people left that I haven't mentioned in season 2. And of course, it's not going to be Brandon. Alright, it's Sky. I really dislike Sky, and there are many things that I dislike about him. His entitlement, mainly. Reason I also didn't like Riven in season 1, but again, Riven has made progress. Sky has not. He is still as jealous, as entitled as he was in season 1, there are several moments when Sky acts like an A-grade asshole, where he ignores Blooms or he just stalks her, outright stalks her, and I'm like, and this is the couple that we are being sold is like the it couple, because remember, in Winx Club, it might be called Winx Club, but it is basically Bloom's show, right? So Bloom is the main character, and the main character's romantic interest is, they're considered the it couple just by default. And it's like, how are you selling me that these two codependent teenagers that have zero emotional regulation capacity are like the it couple, the perfect couple, are the ultimate romantic endgame? And let me not even talk about the whole Jasper thing, because the fact that it got brushed off in season 1, then she's brought back in season 2. Sky did not apologize to neither girls about what happened in season 1. The thing about Sky is that, as he is the romantic interest of the main character, he is considered the ultimate boy to look up to. The ultimate man, if you will. He's not a man yet, but you know, like, this is the guy that is being sold as the guy. You know, it's like the perfect boyfriend, if you will. And we know he's the farthest from being the perfect boyfriend. They have a really unhealthy dynamic. We are mocking, like, in this time, we are mocking Timmy and we are mocking Helia for being like too much like a girl or not manly enough. And the manly is Sky? That's the definition of manliness? Because my guy is a child, like a child that is having a tantrum. That's how he acts like. And again, a rude asshole. I will have said it, I have cursed again. The segue between Sky and the remaining character is actually the moment that made me furious, because remember when Bloom is kidnapped by Lord Darker and his puppet. Sky has the audacity, and yes, I have chosen my words very intentionally, he has the audacity to talk to Brandon and say, doesn't your ex have these whatever creature that can eat rocks? And Brandon's like, oh yeah, rather not. It's like, and then Sky even threatened him at some point, and he was like, oh, you better, like, it better work, you better manage to convince your ex. And I am like, ex? Threats? Orders? Who do you think you are? Like, technically, Sky is like the prince, like the heir to the throne of Heraklion, and Brandon is his servant. So I guess that there's this dynamic here, but do you realize how much of an asshole he is? Because Armencia is not Brandon's ex. She assaulted him. Assaulted him. Now granted, nothing actually like happened, but again, are you trying to tell me that if the genders were reversed here and something like this happened, it would float? Because I feel like it really benefited the fact that Brandon is a boy and not a girl, that they were able to like slide it in like this, because let's not forget that in season 1 something kind of similar happened between Bloom and Riven got slapped and received a fucking vase to the head. Well, vase water on the head. But like with Brandon, we're just gonna brush it aside and call it, oh shit, his ex. Like, while we're at it, if we're gonna have double standards about it, well, you know what? Riven was just flirting, right? Like, there are some huge issues with that. And the fact that Sky is Brandon's so-called friend, but that is how he reacts, he makes a joke of someone who was going to forcefully marry him, and you know the rest. And then he orders him that he better be able to convince his ex. I'm like, sorry, my guy? If I had been here, I would have better left unsaid what I would have said, because that's not the topic. But it does lead me to our last specialist, Brandon. And this is the whole reason I had this thumbnail and this title for this video, because how could we brush aside so quickly what happened to Brandon legitimately the guy was violated. His personal space, he sacrificed himself so that his girlfriend would not die. And he was going to be forcefully married, basically treated as slave, you know? And then it was like, oh yeah, they managed to like get him out, and then oh, it's good, and then we can make joke about it. Okay, the reason why I am so pissed about this is because, first of all, this is a crime. The way it was treated was like just brushed off. Like Bloom being groomed was more explicitly wrong. Like it was shown as like it's bad, he's a villain, whatever. But like with Amencia, she's just an ex. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because like you have incredibly dark storylines in season 2, 2 of them that are incredibly dark. And on one hand, Bloom, I do not think was treated seriously enough. I already said my piece about that, but still, it was said as like it's bad thing, the villain or whatever, evil things, okay? But like for Brandon, it's like brushed aside because oh no, she's just his ex. Now this is where we're gonna make the connection with the real world, because the fact that this happened in the early 2000s, and that is how we thought was a good way to treat how men can be victims too, boys can be victims too. I'm gonna say that it is incredibly realistic, because when you look at what's going on today, or even, I mean, not just today, like even years before, boys and men are not taken seriously when they said that they have been violated, when they have experienced things that make them uncomfortable. They are legitimately not taken seriously. And now I know that women sometimes aren't either. I'm not saying that it's just, you know, but still, when you really look at things, the way when something happens to a boy or a man, it gets completely dismissed and treated as a joke, that if you just switch the genders, it would be unacceptable. This is a double standard that I am like, but it's still very much present. And I'm pretty sure that if you have been, you're like in tune with what happens online and like drama channels, there are at least 2 examples, 2 people that you could cite on the top of your head of what I'm saying exactly here. And I can't believe that it's a thing, you know. So the reason why I wanted to make this episode so much is that this is something that is bothering me. It's really bothering me, and I would love to know if you have noticed that there is this double standards about this, about men being victims, boys being victims, just them admitting they're uncomfortable. And the reason sometimes they don't talk about their emotions, they don't talk about what happens to them, is because they're like, well, no one's going to treat me seriously. Both men and women won't take me seriously. And I have had a conversation with a colleague once where I was telling him that, yeah, the most important thing for me is to be honest, and I just want people to tell me things straight as they are. Now, I don't want people to be deliberately rude or mean, but like I want to hear it as it is. I want to know what you think, what you feel. Don't hide, don't lie, just give it to me, you know? And then I remember what he said was, well, you know, there are a lot of things that I would like to say, or I would love to say to my partners or whatever, but I mean, they're not going to take me seriously. And I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah, because it happened in previous relationships. And I was like, well, these clearly weren't the people for you. And it's not because you're like unworthy or unmanly, like nothing to do with it. It's just because like, how dare those people, well, there were women in this case, but just dismiss the fact that he has feelings too. It's a very exploitative relationship, a one-sided relationship where only one party gets to be emotionally vulnerable and the other just somewhat takes it. So yeah, this is something that I have been wanting to talk about. Obviously, Brandon is not just what happened to him in season 2. He is overall a very sweet, very funny, very charismatic, very good friend and loyal. The fact that Sky was the one out of all people, not Riven, Sky was the one to make jokes about it and to then be like, oh, you better whatever with your ex. I'm like, No. I feel like Brandon is a better example of what a man, regular masculinity is like, because he is like more stereotypically masculine. He is in his masculine energy, let's say, but he's not being a douche about it either. Anyways, these were my thoughts about the specialist. Do tell me all of your thoughts in the comments. I would love to read them and know about them. This is quite a serious topic. Now, I would love to read you today's card, and what's really interesting about this oracle card pull is that a man is on the card. So it's called Le Contentement, contentment. So what this card says, its keywords are presence, thriving, serenity. See things as they are, see and watch without judgment to find the point of serenity, a natural state of being, like observing a flight of birds, a flower, or a tree. Appreciate every instant of your life in this moment. There is no effort to be made, just be. You can be present and satisfied. There is no shadow in this picture. Your life is actually following the natural flow. To be well is to be alive. What else is there more down here? What else can we ask for? And if you have any questions about what hypnotherapy is, do put them down in the comments. It's the next video I'm gonna make. Do also give me suggestions for other topics. I plan on having the next Sunday stories be about Fairy Tail, the manga anime, because it's going to be its 20th birthday, but I'll be back to like other topics afterwards, so let me know. On this note, this would have been today's Sunday stories, so do watch the following video if you're interested. And again, if you want to work with me, talk about like things that are going on and patterns you have noticed about yourself, there'll be a link to the free discovery call in the description. So yeah, see you next time.